And I want, of course, immediately to congratulate our new leader of the opposition, and Valda Lawrence, honorable member, back on stream. I want to also commend, from the stats that I heard as to attendance, Ganesh and Jureta for being 100% present. Honorable members being 100% present at the Public Accounts Committee. It does appear that from some of the speakers on the other side, severe blackout moments are occurring in relation to their arguments on this issue. It is rather elusive moments, because the entire nature and context of what is called Public Accounts Committee is not understood and comprehended by them at all. Mr. Speaker, you would know, you being a parliamentarian for years, that the Public Accounts Committee is a committee that is sui generis and is unique. And the axis upon which its pivot rests is also to be advantageous to the opposition, whosoever the opposition will be. And you know, just now I heard from Mr. Sanjeev Dattadin, honorable member, talking about fairness and balance and all of that. And when we were asking at the Natural Resource Fund just to name one member that will scrutinize the committee there, they didn't want to do that. But here it is, we have Public Accounts Committee, which is to ensure the scrutiny of expenditures by the government of the day, now being literally made de minimis in the context of this amendment that could be abused. And it is not true for anybody to say that they are going to get more balance with their 2 members being compulsory and mandatory there before a meeting could be called. Their 2 members or their 5 members could be there, and they could scrutinize too. Just that is why, Mr. Speaker, you would know that we expanded participation from 7 to 9 members. The coalition administration extended it 9 members, so you can have 4 and 5. And to that extent, the whole concept of participation, Mr. Speaker, the more concept of participation is to have a certain set of numbers. And the numbers include 5 or 4, 5 depending on when you are in government. And this has been a time-tested proposition for the PAC. Since 1963, it was there. And also, it was for purposes of that reason that the unique characteristic of it was that the chairperson must be from the opposition. But we had what is called the commencement of a process to derail the guardrails when they said, and came by motion here, that if we have no confidence in the chairperson must go. And that is how they ousted that which the opposition, who the opposition wanted, they ousted. Mr. Speaker, this is an extremely dangerous development. It is a development that is now, in a sense, against the time-tested. And this is happening in England, the mother of all parliaments, whereby these things occur and the attributes remain for centuries. But you know what they want to do? They want to collapse the sacrosanct nature of the Public Accounts Committee. They want to rule by what you call the tyranny of the majority here. That is what we are having. And it is what you call, rather than the rule of law, we have what is called the law of the ruler. And so that they now will ensure that this happens. Mr. Speaker, the guardrails have started already collapsing. Judicial Service Commission not there. Public Service Commission not there. Teaching Service Commission not there. Natural Resource Fund Board not there. Oh, Local Content Secretariat not there. Petroleum Commission not there. Integrity Commission. Almost 2 years. Oh yes, you could cuss us down. A portion of our administration, we did not do it. But you promised that you're going to correct it. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they have not. Mr. Speaker, I wish to state this other, a little history. We had a robust parliamentary reform process. It started around 2002 and it rose up to 2006, where we have Sir Michael Davies, Pinda, Bradford, and all those other persons that were created via consultancies to write in to our standing orders what should be recommendations. You know, we agreed on this 3-person as the quorum, not only because it was time tested since 1963, but also because we had rationalizations for it. I sent to you, Mr. Speaker, a copy of why that was so. And we had a World Bank official that had come to Guyana called Staphenhurst. I remember him being invited by then President Jagdeo. And we also had another person by the name who was doing some research for Mr. Sir Michael Davies. His name is McGee, writing on the budgetary process. And they were talking why it is that it is necessary to have this process of a quorum. And this was one of the arguments. I have sent it to you. Says small PSCs are also believed to be less likely to work effectively because of their size, obviously. And that is why it went up to 9. A small PSC may be confronted with a variety of problems. Its members may have too many other committee duties and may not devote sufficient attention to their PSC work. Its members may have commitment that prevent them from attending committee meetings and preventing the PSC from reaching the quorum, Or the committee may be dominated by government-affiliated MPs who have little intention for effectively scrutinizing the expenditures of government that they come from. That is what it is. So you have today an amendment to a time-tested, time immemorial. This thing is there. Why touch it? When we did what we did in relation to the amendments to committees and even to increase their sizes, we never touched the core rate proposition. We always left it at 3 because we found that it was enshrined by the time and also enshrined because of the sense, the common sense approach that is made of it. And when you talk about the issue, of it will be fairness and balance, that is a sleight of hand, a complete sleight of hand to ensure now that controlling it by virtue of having 2 members of the government side to form a quorum, which could very well stultify and stifle the work of that committee. We never wanted to deny government people their right to be in that PSC. They just got to show up. And if they don't show up in accordance with the nature and context of that PSC, the work will get done by 3 members of the opposition proceeding with the work. If they don't want to show up, well, that is it. But if you now go and implant on a standing order that was there for such a long period of time, time-tested, and in accordance with all the other in the Commonwealth countries of the world, you are making, obviously, some oblique motive be your motivation. And that is why it was very commendable when Ganesh Mahipal spoke, indicating what it is that is there. So this reform process that we had, which ensured that we did not touch the 3-member committee, the 3-member that created the quorum, had tremendous, good, cogent, compelling reasons behind it. What it is that the 3-member committee can do too, and it has been written in the literature, is that it compels the government members who might want not to be there to come there. That is what it does. Because you can very well have, when you've set up what you're now trying to set up, and to entrench quorum to mean the 2 members of the government side must be in this committee, it then ensures that you take away their compulsion of wanting to be there by virtue of not staying away, and as a result of the staying away, the work not getting done. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I really couldn't understand why it is that they put in this whereas clause, whereas Standing Order number 83.5 provides in the Parliamentary Management Committee a certain quorum of 5 members and so on. We're talking apples and oranges. The Parliamentary Management Committee is a totally different kettle of fish from the Public Accounts Committee. And to that extent, then, to put this as a red herring and a non sequitur, to argue the case for their resolve clause is but a sleight of hand, a blackout moment for those who purport to talk about democracy but knows nothing about its institutional aspect. Mr. Speaker, what we have here is a galloping erosion. That is the galloping erosion of our institutions in this Parliament. It is a rolling back of the enshrining and the entrenchment of the Public Accounts Committee to do its work, and especially in the context of Guyana now having so much more money as a result of that production agreement in petroleum that we signed on. They are going to now want to do away with the scrutiny that can come by virtue of the stifling and stultifying of the work of that committee. Mr. Speaker, could they really explain that whereas clause? Because Parliamentary Management Committee is a committee, unlike the PAC, in the sense that it tries to build consensus in relation to how Parliament will be run. But by the very nature of a Public Accounts Committee, you have to have fierce and fiery, independent calls made on government spendings. That is a component of democracy in relation to financial arrangements that is necessary. And so it does not have to have a 2 and 2 and a chairman. You go there, all the other committees have that. But they're trying to hoodwink. That is a wrong word, I understand. But whatever, the bamboozle is probably the word. Or they're trying as best as possible to steer our gaze away from their motivations of not wanting to do the correct thing. And that steering of the gaze is by saying, like, you know, the Parliamentary Management Committee has a 2-2-1 chairperson, and let me put it like that. No! Just like how the analogy, I think of it because I was in the criminal bar for many years, and it is the nature of why there is something called the presumption of innocence of accused people. Why they got to be judged by their peers. because when there is a prosecution by the state and all its resources, it could be disadvantageous for justice if you don't give the presumption and a jury to a minuscule accused. Similarly here, the analogy has got to be understood in that context, that the axis upon which public accounts committees all over the world is driven by the fact that the opposition of the day must have that advantage. What we're seeing here now is a taking away. It is a rollback, a tremendous rollback. And it is, of course, another aspect in this galloping erosion of institutional democracy. It must not be allowed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to touch on this aspect of the needs assessment. I come back a little on that. When we were doing the needs assessment of Parliament during that very robust parliamentary era of around 2004, 2006 period, and even extended, we made sure that we went into all of these committees and even the other committees that we created for purposes of ensuring that there is an element of not a tyranny of the majority, not a tyranny of the majority. And that is why we got photocopies of the standing orders of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. And the introduction, what is called, I think, note on the standing orders. The standing orders of the National Assembly were amended in 2011 by the Special Select Committee on the report of the drafting standing orders. I was a member of that committee. Honorable Member Gail Teixeira used to say that I never used to attend meetings. Members worked assiduously in conducting meetings over a 4-year period where they carefully considered each order. That is what we have here in the standing orders, where they carefully considered each order, making deletions, insertions, and also ensuring that the language be gender neutral. Also included for the first time is a compendium of the rulings of the Speaker. On the 21st of July, the report of that draft standing orders was adopted by the National Assembly. Why we adopt the thing? We adopted it, and each one of those, and I was trying my best to get the Hansard of that standing order committee, but I couldn't get it. But it will obviously state therein the rationale why we want a three-man quorum to make that work of the PAC move forward. And so we have it. It is written here by Mr. Sherlock Isaacs, writing that. These amendments were incorporated into the standing orders, which have been reprinted for circulation to members of the 10th Parliament. What law reform? As I am saying, it is a rolling back of the true democracy that we had in that period and the robust parliamentary period. Why are you going to go roll it back? You know, and you call it, and they are, you know, they are almost Goebbelian in their propaganda, that this is but an evolution into a higher order. This is not so. It is reckless, and it is a rollback. It is a retrograde step, and it should not be countenanced by the parliamentarians here. I don't know if the younger parliamentarians of the government side does not appreciate what we did during that constitutional and parliamentary reform process. It seems that they never understand it. And so it is important that we get there. Mr. Speaker, we also inserted, well, not inserted, but they inserted what is called the Standing Orders Committee in Standing Order 89. There shall be a committee to be known as the Standing Orders Committee, to consist of the Speaker as chairperson, and not less than 6 nor more than 10 members to be nominated by the Committee of Selection as soon as may be after the beginning of each session. It shall be the duty of the committee to consider from time to time and report all matters relating to our standing orders, which are referred to in the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, we create institutions like this in that parliamentary process. Standing orders, committee. So what? It is there for decorative purposes? Are we just there to have it on some shelf now for the purposes of not in any way ensuring that now that we want a change, the Standing Orders Committee as a subcommittee dealing with this thing should not have dealt with it before? I am very surprised at Gail, honorable member, for taking this course of wanting to do basically an amendment of an entrenched position, a parliamentary entrenched position. Just like in our Constitution, we have certain entrenched clauses. We have entrenched standing orders. This is one of them. And you feel now that you can come here by a majority and you just go and you argue the case that, look, we change it. And you know, they spread the word around like gospel, even coming from Bishop Wanejil, honorable member, that indeed this thing has godliness about it. It is the devil here, and we must see under the veil what the devil is. Mr. Speaker, all of these are reasons why we should not persist with this thing. It should have gone to the Standing Orders Committee. I must commend my friend, and although they laugh at him and say he's playing lawyer, he is smart enough to understand that in the written way it is done here, the formulation, it means that if that chairperson is not there, you can't get a meeting. And so it is important then that that also be amended. Mr. Speaker, this thing has tremendous detrimental impacts in relation to our financial scrutiny by this committee. This is the important committee, probably the most important committee of Parliament, the Public Accounts Committee, because it's the Parliament that in a government or the executive branch that spends the money. It is an opposition branch, as it were, to ensure that it is scrutinized properly. And though you can have 5 members being on their side in that committee, the whole tenor, the whole context of why it is needed is for that access to give the balance to the opposition side. What we are doing here is making de minimis. It should not be supported. This is but a dastardly development of our financial affairs in our parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable member.